guys, Shane here. I figured I'd start doing some YouTube videos about my Bolt ownership. I've had the Bolt now for 125,000 kilometers, a little over 2 years. And I want to share my experience with you guys on the Bolt and maybe some the good things, the bad things, and whether or not I recommend it, and anything else going to help you guys decide on if you want to buy one or not. I've had this thing for 2 winters now, so I can tell you about the charging in the winter, how cold affects it. Everybody knows that electric cars are affected by cold. Is it going to fit your lifestyle, depending on how far you live from work, how far you want to drive, how many kilometers you lose, and so forth. So my initial thoughts on this vehicle when I first bought it and picked it up, I loved it, and I still do. It's a great car. It's really fun to drive. It's very quick off at the start, and it stays flat to the ground, and you can go around corners very well. You seem like you have great control in this car. Did Uber with this vehicle. I probably put about 5,000 kilometers on using this vehicle with Uber. Something I just wanted to try out. I had time to do it. I don't do it anymore. I did do it just to see how much it would cost me, considering I'm not using gas. And it was okay, but it's not something I wanted to continue to do. Regen on this vehicle. I love the regen. I use the one pedal driving in L mode. I never drive in V mode, which is like regular car mode, I guess. It still brakes for you a little bit when you let go of the accelerator, but not as much as it would in the L mode. I always drive in L mode. It's such an enjoyable way to drive this vehicle. You take the foot off the accelerator and it brakes almost like if you're braking on a normal car, but we're not using the brakes, so I'm really going to be surprised how long these brakes last for. I imagine anywhere from 250,000 to 300,000 if I had to guess. A lot of people complain about the seats. To be honest with you, I understand where they're coming from. I drive to work 80 kilometers one way. You're driving more than maybe an hour or two, you start to feel how uncomfortable they are, but not to the point where that it's terrible. But I guess to each his own. Everybody has their own opinion on the seats. Would it stop me from buying the vehicle? No way. I think this vehicle is comfortable enough to drive every day, and I would still buy it. Now, I drive this thing pretty quick and sporty. I just love it. It's fun. And I don't get as many kilometers as probably most people get on this car if they drive it normally. In the summer, I probably get around 300 kilometers an hour for the charge. Only because I'm driving a lot of highways, and I'm normally on the 400 highway, which I'm driving on an average of 130 kilometers. So because I drive that fast, I do get a lot less kilometers than I could. But I'm okay with that. Like I said, for the most part, I go to work and back, and lucky for me, I charge at work for free. That is great. That's awesome. So during the week, to operate this vehicle, it costs me $0. And you can't ask for anything better than that. So weekends, I plug it in at home in my garage, and from 0 battery to full, I think it's costing me about $650. There's a lot of room in this car. When I drove Uber with this vehicle, that's the first thing all the customers were talking about, is how spacious it was in this vehicle. And they loved the acceleration and how smooth the ride was. People were just fascinated with this vehicle a couple years ago when I first got it. Not a lot of people seen them. They didn't even know they existed. And first impressions driving in this vehicle is just how smooth and spacious it is. Bought a new set of rims, summer rims, with low profile tires, and it's really improved the driving on this vehicle, made it a lot more sportier, a little bit more rougher of a ride, but I would not change that for anything. I think the original tires and rims, I actually just put those away down in the basement. I haven't used those after the first year. I prefer the low profile summer tires, sporty rims. Fast FC. Had them for a couple years right now. Just got to make sure you don't scratch them up. Now the tires are Firestone Indy 500, and tire size is 225s, 40, 18. Makes the car look sporty, those rims. Tinted the windows. I think the first week I got it. I'm losing probably about 50 kilometers mileage with these tires versus the originals, but again, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I just love the way the car even handles even better around corners, and I would totally recommend it if you're looking for something more sporty. Does the Bolt fit any person? I think so. You drive this vehicle, it's awesome. It's quiet, and you really appreciate that. That's one thing, benefit of electrical vehicle that you really enjoy. In the winter, I drive fast, 130 up and down the 400 on a normal day. I'm in the summer, I'm getting probably around 300 kilometers. In the winter, I'm probably getting around 200 kilometers. So that's really about half what this vehicle can actually do, or more. So it all depends on how you drive this vehicle, is how many kilometers you're going to get out of it. If I'm going on long trips, then I will drive speed limit, and I will get almost the range that it's suggested range, about 380 kilometers. But because I have the summer tires on, I'm losing a bit, I believe. But like I said before, I wouldn't trade that back to the original tires. I like the way this vehicle drives with the sportier low profile tires, and recommend it. Actually, the original tires on this vehicle, to me, were unsafe. I was sliding on rainy days when you take off on a red light. Yeah, if you the torque involved in this car causes the wheels to spin. When I put these low profile tires on, they did not spin, and I took off at the same speed. There was once I think I had to brake quickly on a red light, and I actually slid through the intersection. Those tires, to me, are unsafe. The roll resistance is great, you get better mileage, but that was one of the reasons why I went to a different tire as well. It was just for the safety reasons. What problems have I had with this vehicle since I've had it? Not too many, to be honest with you. Originally, both mirrors were fading away. Actually, I see it happening again now. Now that I'm doing this video, actually, I never noticed it. But again, the mirrors are actually corroding away a little bit. And they ended up replacing both mirrors on both sides. And I believe the one side, after they replaced it, it happened again. And I had to bring it back for them to replace it again. And sure enough, it's happening again. So that's one of the problems with this vehicle, I would say, is that the quality of the mirrors are terrible. And again, I'll show you, it's actually happening again. But this originally, it was at a bigger area. It was probably about that size of the mirror was just degrading away. But for the most part, it's still not that bad right now. But that's something I don't know why, what's up with these mirrors on these vehicles, but they're terrible for that. Right at the bottom of the mirror. But the original mirrors was a lot worse. The other problem I had with this vehicle, which I believe was way too soon, it was bothering me quite a bit when the car is so quiet. And every time you drive into a Tim Hortons to get a coffee and you're going around through the drive-thru, you always hear this squeaking noise in the steering. And I believe there's lots of people who had these problems with the Bolt. And I believe there were the steering dampeners, I guess. They're just a little rod with 2 tie rods on the end, probably about $30 each. And I ended up ordering them through the dealer. This was after my warranty was over at 60,000 kilometers. I think this happened around 100,000 kilometers on the vehicle. And the whole front end was just squeaking every time you turned. And it was driving me nuts because of how quiet this car is. And you appreciate how quiet it is. If there was an engine, I might not have heard it as much. But yeah, that shouldn't have happened at 100,000. And they wouldn't cover it because it was past the 60. So I ended up, I could have put those on myself. The more I thought about it after I saw them do it. It was only a $30 part, 2 of them. And ended up costing me like $250 for them to do it. But that is a problem with these vehicles. And you have to change them. Yeah, one other problem I had with this vehicle. Unfortunately, it was on our way to the airport like 4:30 in the morning. So all of a sudden I was driving and I felt something jerk back and made the vehicle brake. And all of a sudden it was like hesitating. The vehicle was hesitating as I was driving, almost like if it was gonna stall and die out on me. And this was like the worst time this could happen on our way to the airport. And anyway, I kept on going. I made it to work, thank God. Parked the car in the parking lot at work and went on our trip. When I came back, got in the vehicle and started it up, and I noticed the emergency brake light was on, ABS brake light was on, and it did let me drive the vehicle still. And I did not feel that any longer when I was driving. Anyway, I brought it in, and it turned out to be the ABS brake sensors were defective on the front end, and it caused that error to come up, and I had to get it replaced. So that's basically it for the problems I have with the vehicle, which are pretty minimal. What have I paid for on maintaining this vehicle? I think it's cost me on average monthly about $26 a month for energy at the house. Like I said, I charge at work, so on a monthly basis it's about $26 for electricity. And again, I've done 125,000 in 2 years. So if you work that out, it's almost like $300 for the year on electricity for this vehicle. No oil changes, which is amazing. I replaced the windshield wiper blades once, and they've been great. Other than that, it's an awesome vehicle. It's back to the best thing about having an electric vehicle is wintertime. You do not know how much you appreciate not freezing your butt off in the 5 o'clock in the morning on your way going to work, trying to fill up your vehicle with gas. I do not fill up this vehicle with gas anymore, and I do it all in the time of sitting in my garage, and that is awesome. And when I had a vehicle before, I had a Ford Edge, and I believe I filled up that vehicle twice a week. And like I said, sometimes I'd be doing it in winter in the middle on the way to work in the morning and just freezing your butt off. So this is the best thing I would say about this vehicle, other than driving it, is that you appreciate it. Long trips, The Bolt for long trips, you know, it's not the best. I'll be honest with you. Takes you probably about 45 minutes to an hour at least, if not more, an hour sometimes, depending on how far you go down, to charge when you're stopped. So you still, you know, you're still waiting. And then you have problems at these chargers because some of them don't work. You get there, and then now you're looking, find out that the charger doesn't work, or somebody's there before you and there's only one charger. So now you got to wait for them to get out before you can start charging. That's the only problem with this vehicle. So I would say that's the only problem with long drives. It still takes too long to charge. But if you're not in a rush, then there's not really much of a problem. I mean, you're only really waiting half an hour or so, I guess, because if you got to go to the washroom anyway, get some lunch, get something to eat, it's not that bad. But it would be great to have a quicker charging time on this thing, and the charging networks, when they improve them, it will be better. Have I seen any battery degrading? No, I don't think so. Like I said, it's hard to tell because the way I drive, but I changed the tires, so I'm losing a little bit of kilometers there. But based on what I remember back then, if I had to guess, there can't be any more than 5%, 10%. But even then, I don't think so, because I can start slowing. I've done it a few times, not very often. I've slowed down and tried to drive regular speed limits, and I get back up to what the car was recommended getting when I first bought it, like 380, 400. And I think when I had the original tires, I was, even if I was driving speed limits, I was getting probably about 400 to 425. If you drive highways that are only 80 kilometers an hour, I think I was getting close to 500 kilometers. It's awesome. So, but because of the way I drive this vehicle and the speed, I don't get as many kilometers, which, like I said, I live 80 kilometers away from work, and for the most part, I drive no more than 125 kilometers, depending on where I'm going. So it always gets me there and back home, no problem for the most part. So I hope this helps you guys decide if this vehicle is right for you. If you're thinking about buying a Bolt, what are the advantages to it, and what's my opinions on whether or not you should buy it? Is it a good vehicle? I would have to say it is. I would recommend this vehicle to anybody. It's a fun vehicle to drive, fast. I'm not sure what else to tell you. That's roomy. It's a real good vehicle, and I think I'm going to get a lot more kilometers out of this than 125,000. I'm going to keep you posted on this vehicle, so subscribe. I'll keep you up to date on what's happening with this vehicle.